It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Reality, once again, we have with us, we have Congressman Bruce Westerman, and it is always great to have him on the program. Bruce, thanks for coming on this morning.
Hey, Paul. Good morning. Good to be with you.
Yes, sir.
Good to be back in Arkansas.
Okay, good. So you're on Central Time now. Well, tell us a little bit about what's going on in D.C. What have you been working on?
Well, if you saw the news yesterday, it seems to be getting more bizarre every day. But, I don't even think this got reported on, but the last vote we had yesterday was a vote to do another continuing resolution to fund the government and forbid any spending on the border wall, the Democratic motion that they've been trying to pass. And the procedure that normally happens on the floor is you call for a voice vote, and then if nobody requests for the yeas and the nays, then it'll pass based on the decision of the chair. Well, they just called for the voice vote and almost immediately said the motion passes and didn't give us a chance to even vote. And then a lot of the Democrats just immediately left the chamber, and we were standing in there trying to figure out what to do, and we ended up getting them to at least let us come back and vote on that next week. But unbeknownst to me, Speaker Pelosi and several Democrats were dashing out of the chamber to get on the bus and go to the airport to go to Belgium and Afghanistan and other places. And that's when President Trump sent her the letter, told her that the plane wasn't going to be available. She could fly commercial if she really needed to go.
That was that is definitely some news, some context here. So, do you think they were rushing out of the chamber so that they could get on the plane, or are they rushing out of the chamber because they don't want maybe some Democrats, vulnerable Democrats, they don't want it to be reported that they're now supporting funding for the border wall and they might have voted against it?
Well, no, there was no funding for the border wall in it. It was a strict Democratic motion, and it was just kind of a sophomore thing to kind of a got you, I think, because without the recorded vote, it looks like the bill passed the House with no opposition.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I mean by that is what I was thinking is, was there a chance that there would be a Democrat somewhere that would vote with the Republicans in the dissent? That would make headlines. I mean, is there anybody out there in the House, Bruce, that's a Democrat that wants to give Donald Trump what he wants?
I think privately there are probably some, but you're not going to find them out making public statements about it. But I've talked to people that are reasonable and understand that there is a legitimate security issue along the border, that the drugs that are coming across, the human trafficking, that's not good. And this isn't just the president saying this. This is the Border Patrol agencies and other people that are involved in it. And the crazy thing about this, Paul, is they produced numbers. Well, the Democrats wanted to debate the numbers. Was it 3,000 suspected terrorists, or where are they from? How many drugs were actually apprehended there? Well, my question is how much is enough? In 2001, it was 19 terrorists that did all that damage. Mm-hmm. So is it okay to let 10 terrorists in a year, or 50 terrorists, or is if 2,400 pounds of fentanyl is not accurate, which is 500 million lethal doses, so would 1,000 pounds be okay with them? There's just no logic to what they're doing. They try to debate the accuracy of numbers and almost deny that there's any problem at all down on the border.
They are denying that there's a problem on the border. They now claim, Congressman Westerman, that to build a barrier, whether it's a wall or a steel slatted fence, is immoral. But then at the same time, in the same breath, they say, but I'm for border security, but offense is immoral. Well, if offense is immoral and the goal of offense is to keep people from getting in, that's the same goal of border security, is to keep people from getting in. So they're not for border security because they think it's immoral. They think they can't eat their cake and have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, to use some of their language, when did they become the moral police? It's to me, it's immoral that we're allowing the law to be broken, and we're allowing our citizens to be put, their safety to be put in jeopardy, because we want to address the real issue that's along the border. And uninviting the president to the State of the Union address, first time in history, it's really bizarre, some of the things that they're doing. I don't know if you saw this either, but several of us signed a letter to Mitch McConnell and Vice President Pence to invite the president to, or encourage them to invite the president to do the State of the Union in the Senate chamber. I don't know if that'll gain any traction or not, but at least it would give the president a forum to come in and address Congress and and address the nation. But as you know, the Senate chamber is much smaller than the House chamber, so there would be a limited number of people that could actually attend that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, because I would really, I really hope that the president can give the State of the Union just the way it's supposed to be done. It's, to me, and you feel free to give your input, but to me it just looks like Nancy Pelosi didn't want the president to be given the political respect that he deserves as the president, as the executive, to address the government. You would have had angel moms in the as guests, predictably. Also, Ruth Bader Ginsburg would either be there or she wouldn't be there. Either way, it would be a story. If she was there, it'd be a story because people would be watching her. You hearing anything about Ruth Bader Ginsburg by any chance?
No, it's been kind of quiet lately. But I think you're exactly right, Paul, are on the right track, that they're scared to death of the optics and the message of the president having the stage to address the nation and lay the facts out, and to have those people in the gallery who have been adversely affected by lack of security and the opioid and drug epidemic that we have here. I don't think they want to have to endure that. And, I guess they could have another American Gothic response to it with Nancy and Chuck.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Nancy and Chuck Gothic response, because President Trump, his speech was incredibly effective, and it was only 8 minutes. Can you imagine how effective he'd be communicating across all networks for an hour? Yeah.
I don't think they want the American people to hear that message.
Wow. Okay, and, so what are we on? We're talking with Congressman Bruce Westerman. Is this day 28 of the government shutdown?
I believe that's correct. Another thing that they've been doing, they've been having these rallies on the steps of the Capitol, where they take their posters out and they're talking about the government workers that are not getting their paycheck, and which is not right. I've signed on to a bill that if you're an essential worker, you should be paid while you're working. That's even scriptural, that the worker should get his wages. And we shouldn't be asking people to work and not get paid. But then you got the people who are furloughed who aren't getting paid. And I know that causes hardship, but they're trying to make the case that how hard it is on these folks. But think about the people who have lost loved ones to drugs. Think about the little girls that have been sex trafficked, and little boys as well, and all the hardships that are being caused because of the lack of security along the border. So they want to tell one side of the story and try to gain some sympathy from the American people. But I can tell you overwhelmingly the calls that we've gotten in my office have been to stand strong, build the wall, don't give in to Pelosi.
That was my next question, was the feedback that you're getting from your constituents in Arkansas District 4. What would you say the breakdown is percentage-wise? How many people are saying stand strong versus how many people are saying, cave and don't fund the border wall?
I would say it's 90% plus saying stand strong.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I got a lot of sympathy, especially for people who are hardworking Americans that happen to be working for the federal government that are out there doing their job. They should be getting paid, and I think there's ways we could do that, especially in some agencies with fees that are available. And again, I've signed on to a bill that would actually pay those workers while they're working.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the other thing different about this, and again, this is a partial government shutdown. Over 75% of the government is funded, and this administration is working as hard as they can to minimize any interruptions. During the Obama shutdown, I remember them putting up barricades around, out on the mall. I know that the thing that really was unbelievable to me over in Garland County, where I live on Lake Washita, Corps of Engineers was going out and blocking boat ramps. Since the government was shut down, they didn't want anybody.
And I remember that under the Obama shutdown, they were told to do that. You had an anonymous park ranger for one of these parks that was told by his superiors that the president wants to make the shutdown as painful as possible for the American people. I mean, they were even, I think that there was, they violated a state law because Mount Rushmore, there was a part that was the state's ground, and they were not letting people pull over on the side of the road where they could gaze at Mount Rushmore because everything was so contrived. We've got to make people know that they depend on government. And Bruce, I'm like you. I hurt for those families that are trying to figure out how to make their mortgage payment because they're working for the federal government. But for the average American, I think with the government shut down, most people's lives have not been that affected by it. I mean, there are exceptions, airport terminals and things like that, but for the most part, kind of showing us that, we can have a smaller government and things are going to be okay.
Yeah, and there eventually will be some major disruptions. There's some of the ag programs, but again, the administration has called some of those officials back in and said their job's essential, and it eventually will cause problems, and we need to get the government back up and running. But the thing about it, Paul, is as the president has said, this could be done in a 45-minute meeting, and the amount of money that's being asked for, $5 billion is a lot of money, but it's nothing compared to the $3 trillion that the federal government spends every year. There was a disaster relief package that was voted on this week that was $12 to $13 billion, and it hardly made the news.
Let me ask you this last question: do you think, in light of the government workers, who are not getting paid right now, you think President Trump did the right thing yesterday when he said, "You know what, Nancy, you don't think you should go to, you shouldn't be spending all this money and going, using the military to go to, take all the Democrats really out to party." And I say that because we have evidence from back when she was Speaker before that her military flights were pretty much booze cruises.
Well, I think he drove a point home that you can say it was sophomore for him to do that, just like it was for her to withdraw the invitation to the State of the Union. But I think he's showing the American people that he's a fighter, that this isn't something he's going to roll over on. And if she wants to go there, he can certainly go there. It's not good for the country for that to be taking place, but it seems like Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party have this idea that it's only compromise when you agree 100% to what we want.
Yeah.
And the
exactly right.
president has, he said, come over and let's negotiate. He's indicated he would take a lower number, but they don't want to talk about it. It's no wall or nothing is what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
So the drama continues, and I think the president's ultimate out on this is if he finally just says, okay, they're not going to negotiate. This shutdown has gotten to the point where we have to open the government back up, and so I'm going to declare an emergency and start construction on the wall.
Yeah.
I think he's got legal ground to do that, but it's going to be a circus when he does, if he does that.
Yeah.
And it'll be lawsuit after lawsuit. It's almost like, everything that's happening right now is about the 2020 election. You get a new Democrat filing to run every other day. It's not good for the country.
Congressman Bruce Westerman, sir, God bless you. Thank you for the work you're doing, and you have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you, Paul, and enjoy the Johnny Cash Friday. Always good to talk to you.
All righty. Great to talk to you. You know what I think, folks? I think this is the shutdown that's been coming for years. This country's been divided a long time. But if you'll remember, from the movement of the Tea Party or whatever, we never really had enough power in the legislative branch where people were willing to stand toe-to-toe and not compromise. You know what I mean? Like, they're willing to compromise, but they actually want to get something for the compromise. And now that we have a Republican in the White House, you got a guy like Donald Trump, he is just saying no. I mean, he's basically acting the way the Democrats have acted in terms of, you have to agree with me. And that's what America looks like right now. The government is shut down because really, quite frankly, you have rural districts that have completely different values than urban districts. And this is the shutdown that has been coming. And the reason it's lasting so long is because are the disagreements, how divided the country is, they've been kept quiet. But this is really, the stakes are really, really high. I agree it's bad for the country, but it's really exposing a divide that has been there for years. But there's never been a politician willing to actually, expose it, knowing that half the country, if not more, are on his side. And the other half think that the wall is immoral. I don't think that half the country thinks that building a wall is immoral. I don't believe that half of the country actually believes that.